So the question is, if there are GDP forecasts out there saying that we might be headed towards a recession, should you dump all of your investments right now? The problem with that approach, of course, is no one can see the future. And one of the challenges is to make that strategy work, you have to be right twice. You have to be right when you sell, and you have to be right when you buy back in. And in my 30+ years of experience, that's very hard to do. It seems logical that if I could sell all my assets at this level and buy them back here, I should be able to make more money. But just as likely an outcome, I sell at this level predicting that it will drop, but that never happens. I sell and prices actually reverse and move back up. Now what do? I feel left behind and I buy back in at higher prices. What happens if the next day it falls even further? Do I get out again and hope that I can re-enter at an even lower price? So while it seems very simple, sell now and buy back in at a lower price, I could actually be hurting myself even more. I sell here, thinking I'm going to buy back in here, never get the opportunity to, end up buying in higher and taking the downside twice. By capturing the downside twice, I've hurt myself far more than if I just stayed invested. Something else market timers seem to forget, if I stay invested in good investments that are just lower, I generally collect dividends and interest yield off of those investments. That's something many investors can't do over the long run because interest rates tend to be lower than those yields. Back during the Great Recession, when people bailed out of their investments, they effectively earned zero on their cash for a number of years. Those that left their portfolio invested tended to collect dividends and interest which they could reinvest back in more shares. You see, if you have a portfolio of high-quality investments, you should be comfortable holding them through any market cycle, the ups, the downs, the sideways. Patience is often the best way to compound wealth over decades. So some people might ask, if I sold out of the stock market and put it in a money market fund earning, say, 4% right now, wouldn't that work? Well, again, no one can see the future, but one possibility is that as interest rates come down, you earn less and less on the money market, and lower interest rates can tend to help drive up stock prices. So then you're in a situation where you wake up a few months or a year or two later, your money market is yielding next to nothing, yet stock prices have risen 10, 15, or 20% over that time period. Then what do? Go back in and buy stocks at higher prices? Again, not to say that the strategy can't work with perfect timing, but perfect timing is almost impossible to execute upon.